What's up, everyone? Beast Mode back here with another video. So we are back with the zombies. I'm sure many of you will be excited because it has been quite a while since I've had zombies featured on the zombie channel, essentially. I have not been playing much at all, probably the last 2 months. I think I played, my last match was a War League match, and I was playing Blackwing just to play something other than zombies because I was having a difficult time getting anything going with the deck. Not because the deck is bad, just because War League is a different environment than tournament setting. So I have been loosely following the last few tournaments. At this point, it's hard to keep track of everything. There's a tournament frequently, and I'm not sure who's topping what, but I do like to keep a general idea of the decks that are topping. And of course, you see a lot of Frogs, Blackwing, Value, all of that. I think the last RBET this past, weekend or two, had some crazy decks in the top cut. But again, that tournament kind of had some issues, and a lot of people dropped. So I'm not sure how valuable the data is, but again, I don't really care, I guess. I haven't really looked into it too much. It doesn't really matter. It's cool to see some different decks, but there has been a couple of zombie decks that have been in the top cut of some of these online tournaments that I think are really interesting. So today what I want to do is kind of talk about the few zombie decks that are running around and see where are zombies going to be, or where do they need to go to get back into like that whole S tier discussion, because this deck by no stretch of the imagination is bad. Okay, I could probably pick up this deck and still be very successful with it. I just think that the metagame has obviously shifted in a path where the decks have a lot more explosive cards such as Miracle Fusion. It's hard to compete against some of those decks that are able to drop absolute zeros pretty frequently. Of course, this deck can be explosive as well, but Frogs are very prominent. The deck is really, really good. Blackwing is extremely aggressive. Value has Royal Oppression. So there's just a lot of stuff that can easily beat zombies with a few cards, such as like Royal Oppression. Obviously, that's a difficult card to deal with. It completely shuts down the deck. But in other words, I do think that the format is aggressive right now, and that's one of the reasons why this deck, specifically the Recruiter build that I have, topped I don't know how many events with, and really this is my favorite type of style to play zombies. It's difficult to win with this deck right now, and I'll say why. Probably about, I don't know, maybe a year ago, where I was topping every event with this, and I don't know which deck this one specifically was from. It could have been from like RBT 4 or something from last year. I'm not sure, but the game, obviously players weren't as good as they are now, number one. Number two, metagame was not clearly defined, or wasn't as defined as it is now. I don't think that the Edison format is solved by any stretch of the imagination, but I definitely think at this point it's clear that we have a few decks that are definitely better than the rest. And at that time, that wasn't the case. The decks that are better than the rest at this current time are very aggressive. Okay, so Hero Beat is one of those decks where it literally summons an alias every turn and tries to attack. And Blackwing is obviously, the whole deck is literally slam a bunch of cards and you usually just get there. You don't really see a lot of, maybe a year ago, where a lot of new people entering the format would just try to play quick draw. Deck is slow. Some of those Caliber Cat and all those decks that you saw top the actual Edison YCS, which are not very good now. A lot of those decks were running around back then. So if there was those slower style decks could not hang with the explosiveness of zombies, because you set a monster, I'm setting recruiters, we're playing that back and forth game, but my deck has the capability of just exploding out of nowhere. Nowadays we have Blackwings that are just swarming the field. People are slamming. I've watched War League. It's unbelievable what people are doing. Some people think they have reads. There's no reads going on. They have total disregard for Torrential, Mirror Force, and they just slam cards, and it's difficult to play like that. You're trying to play a conservative type of game with this type of deck here, setting recruiters and whatnot, and they're just dropping 3 or 4 guys on the board and just attacking. So it's difficult to win in that sense. Also, where you have some of the better Blackwing players, they will see one recruiter and they just don't attack it. Okay, and then they play the Icarus attack game, and then it'll just Icarus the Pyramid Turtle or the recruiters away. So it's much harder in that sense to get your recruiters off. So back in the day, people would either attack a Pyramid Turtle, try to clear it off the board, and then you'd get your Goblin Zombie, and it would set you up for the next turn. So in other words, we have people playing Blackwings extremely aggressive, where they're just outpacing this type of deck which happens. Number one, or number two, they're playing in a way which I think is better. They're playing much smarter, and they're not giving you these recruiter searches. Hero Beat's another deck. You can just slam an Alias every turn and and Miracle Fusion and just be very aggressive with the deck. Or you play the deck in a style where, oh, I see a Pyramid Turtle, I'm just going to wait until I have Spark. I'm not going to attack it. Because this deck is very reliant, especially the recruiter build, on your opponent giving you what you need, okay? A year ago, there wasn't many D prisons running around. Right now, there's a lot of decks main decking D prison. Look at this deck I played here. No D prisons in the main deck. There was often they were in the sideboard. This is probably from about a year ago. So you were able to play the game where if your opponent had open field, you could summon a Goblin Zombie, attack for 1100. You could have summoned a Turtle, attack directly. And if you just got one or two of those attacks off, being able to drop 5,600 damage with this deck is nothing. Being able to OTK with 8,000 is more difficult. There's a specific line that's required. But so in other words, you were able to kind of summon a Turtle, attack directly, summon a Goblin Zombie. They never wanted to waste a Mirror Force or Torrential on that. So you get a few pokes in, and then now you only have to deal with like 6,000 life points, and that's like literally a Goblin and a Diva, and boom, it's done. Nowadays, D prisons are everywhere, so you lose that bit of tempo that you could get. You can't attack early game because you risk losing running into a D prison. So then you have to set your recruiters. Now, you might get one recruiter to go off, okay? Maybe they summon a Shura and they attack and run over a Pyramid Turtle. Maybe they summon an Alias. That's fine. The second they see one, they don't attack them anymore. So now you can't ram anything because there's D prisons, and your opponent's not giving you what you need. So that's kind of the problem I see with this deck right here. It was really relying on your opponent kind of giving you and playing that game where I'm just going to sit back, let my opponent use a bunch of cards, attack my recruiters, and set my board up in a position so when I play my next turn, I'm able to just drop a bunch of synchros and win the game. Now, this is the deck I think it was about a year ago. This is where I think the deck needs to go in order to be more competitive in this environment. This here is James Ark's Ultimate Offering Zombie, I guess we'll call it. I think this is actually Lydiob's deck that topped with it, I don't know, maybe a month or two ago. It's very similar to his version. I'm not sure what the exact ratio was, but at this point I would pretty much call this Ark's deck. And the reason why I think this is the way the control recruiter build has to go is because of Ultimate Offering. This card right here allows you to bypass your opponent not giving you what you need. You can sit back, play Ultimate Offering, and say, okay, don't attack my recruiter, that's fine. I'll just play 500, I'll bring out a Goblin Zombie, I'll pay 500, drop a Diva, and I'll make my Synchro Pays my own turn. So this card here gives you the ability to play the game that you want to play in today's environment. Obviously, you see D prisons in the main board because, like I said, you can't really swing with any of these anymore because of the D prison. And if you sit back and try to play the slow game, they either A, just drop 6 Blackwing monsters and kill you so quick that you can't do anything, or B, they don't give you anything at all. So again, a lot of players are getting very smart with this and not giving you the recruiters. So I think this card gives you the access you need to make those explosive plays regardless of what your opponent's doing. Also, you can end on an open board and your opponent's playing Blackwings, we'll say, and they have two or three Blackwing monsters on the field. And if they decide to attack, you can pay 500 and drop a Turtle. And now they have to make that decision where they've committed pretty heavily to the board. And if they decide to just pass their turn and not give you the search, they're at risk for losing some of those cards, if they overcommitted. So this card can also punish some of that aggressive Blackwing style with some of the players that just, again, I've watched many of matches, total disregard for what's going on, what your opponent could possibly have. This card could also punish that just by playing one recruiter during their battle phase. Now it makes them play the game they don't want to play. So I do think that this deck goes from this, something along, and I do think, and again, this is not black and white. Yu-Gi-Oh is played in the gray area. That I'm not saying that this deck can never win. That's not true. I just think that this deck needs a little bit more, to kind of get it back into that whole S tier group. And again, this is very, very marginally outside of that group. But I think that this card probably can do it. And I've talked a little bit about it. I have not had as much thorough play testing as I'd like. But I do think now this card is great when it works. The problem is too, it does have its downside where you're top decking this card and you need real pieces of removal or interaction. And this card just doesn't get you there. So it is obviously flawed, but, I do think this control style of zombie deck, I think it needs to cut back on recruiters or play the Ultimate Offering style. So that's kind of my discussion, a little rant on, or my opinion on the recruiter build. This is definitely my favorite zombie build. I love the way this deck plays. It's just a little bit harder to play my style nowadays, just due to some of the people playing very, very aggressive or not giving me what I need at all. It's kind of hard to find that middle ground where people are actually attacking recruiters and not slamming a bunch of cards and doing all that. And again, players are just getting smarter. And I think maybe it's just that Blackwing should play extremely aggressive and just not have a total, or just don't care what your opponent's doing. Maybe that's why that playstyle works, because the deck is really like designed. The cards really work well playing like that. But let's hop into the other style. So this is Silchus's Hero Zombie. This deck was running around for a while. It was tearing up tournaments for a very long time. This deck was often seen to be more explosive than the Recruiter build. And it is. It has more plays. It has Future Fusion. It has a Mally play. It drops 8-star synchros very easily. And it can, you can drop 2, 3, 4 synchros in one turn. So this deck is still, and even though how explosive this deck is, I often don't see this style doing as well anymore. Again, still playing the 4 recruiters, which is a tad bit slow, I feel like, nowadays. Winglass is obviously a bit slower. It's a trap card. It has to be set for a turn. You do run the risk of opening double Mally, which has always been the downside of playing double Mally. But this deck is very good. And the reason why this deck is feels better into certain matchups than the recruiter build is because you can make the Colossal Omriom OTK you can actually do it with this deck. The recruiter build you can't. So that kind of helps against maybe the Frog matchup, where you can steal games with just doing the Colossal Omri OTK, because you have the Evil Hero Infernal Prodigy here. So even this deck here is a bit outdated, I feel. I know Silchus still plays it, and I haven't seen him top anything in a bit. I'm not sure how many tournaments he's playing in, but I just have not seen this deck in a top cut in a bit. And I do think that this deck also needs to kind of change to maybe hang with today's meta. And I think that we have actually seen what this deck morphs into, and that would be this here. This is Jake XO's deck. I think that this deck is actually topped twice recently, and this is Hero Zombie. But this deck is more explosive, and it relies, it's not as slow. This deck's actually faster than Silchus's build. And the reason why is Gold Sark. Number one, you search for exactly what you need. You just have to wait 2 turns to get it. 2 turns sounds like a long time, but in Edison, it's really nothing. You also have the extra Miracle Fusion, which can be inconsistent at times, but 1 is probably the right number for this deck. Greffer also is a great addition to this deck. Makes the deck does make the deck a little bit more explosive and gets rid of the Mally. It chooses not to play Wingblast, because Wingblast is also, you have to set it for a turn. It might need 1 Wingblast. I did play this deck a little bit. It felt very good. I like this deck. I actually might consider playing it, which I've never really been a big Hero Zombie fan. But this deck feels right. And if I was playing Heroes, if I was specifically targeting like Hero Zombie, this is the deck I'd play. I think that it feels more consistent because of Gold Sark. Again, you have to wait 2 turns, and you can make the counter argument, oh, you're saying it's more explosive and it's faster than the old Hero build. It is. It's less reliant on there's 1 less recruiter. You search exactly what you need for the added piece. You can search for Dark Arm. You search for the piece of, get the heavy. You get the exact piece that you need for the puzzle. Miracle Fusion adds another layer of explosion. Okay. And I just think that this deck right here is probably the way zombies need to go to hang with the decks that are playing Miracle Fusion. Every deck that's any good is pretty much playing Miracle Fusion, unless it's Bayou. And this deck gives you that piece with, obviously has Miracle Fusion in it, but plays a bit like it. This deck plays a little bit like Diva Hero. But I think it's more consistent because of the fact that it has a zombie engine. So I think this is the way that zombies need to go. Honestly, this, or if you're playing the Recruiter style with Ultimate Offering, and I've said it a few times, I really like this deck. I like the sideboard too. I actually played with this sideboard, and I know people look at it and go, oh, that's kind of like why they're just playing one of everything. But I've learned over the last 6 months that side decking too many cards for a specific matchup is actually really bad. And because then you over sideboard, it decreases the consistency of the deck, and it actually just nullifies what your deck is good at doing. And you're trying to stop your opponent. And the key is, even if you side deck in 10 cards, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to see the right card at the right time. and it hinders your deck. So I like this kind of one of everything, and it feels like, for example, you should probably only be side decking 4-ish cards per matchup. If you're side decking 7, 8, 9 cards for a matchup, you're not approaching the matchup correctly, in my opinion. You probably don't need that much hate for that specific game, for that specific matchup, and you're really hurting your own deck by doing that. So I think just having enough here is, like, for frogs, for example. You can put in the Fossil Dyna, a Crow. You could even Prohibition if you wanted. I'm not really a huge fan on this. I'd have to really think of a specific application, but let's just say Dyna, you can do the Crow. Super Poly gives you access to Super Poly because you're playing Absolute Zero. You could put in the one Massive Restrict. So, you know what I mean? Even a Smash if you wanted to try to out a dupe block. You could even put in a Vanity's Fiend. You don't need to go overboard with 6, 7 cards. You can specifically pick and choose, depending on if you're going first or second, which card you want to put in here. I think having one of everything gives you a little bit more options for a wide field, and you can just, pick a few of these cards here, maybe 4 or 5 of them, and put them in your deck for any given matchup. And each card does something different. So it's not like you're putting in 3 Pulling the Rug, and then you see 2 of them opening hand, and they summon a Vanity's Fiend. And then you're just like, well, I guess I lose, right? You have a little bit of variety. I think this is honestly like the way sideboards might start looking, is like the one-ofs, 15 of like one good card for a bunch of different matchups, and I kind of like it. So I like this deck. I really shout out to, I think it was Jake XO who created it. I could be wrong. I think best Yu-Gi-Oh player NA also top with it. I'm not sure who actually like kind of refined this deck, but I will find out. I'm sure somebody will comment. This right here feels really good. I highly recommend trying it. I think that this is the deck here that could see zombies like consistently topping again. Me personally, I'm still a huge fan of the control slow recruiter style, and I'm probably going to try to play this until it absolutely doesn't work, and I definitely still need to get more testing in. But I just wanted to talk a little bit about zombies and the deck. I'm sure many will disagree with my opinion, and that's fine. That's what's great about it. We all can think different ways, and again, Yu-Gi-Oh is not played in a vacuum. So some of the things I'm saying is true, and some of the things I'm saying is not true, and it may not apply to every match. But I do think Zombies is still an A tier deck, definitely. It was an S tier deck for a long time. I think that it's definitely good. You can definitely top with it. You can definitely win a tournament with it. But it's not as prevalent, and people believe that a lot of people believe the deck's not good anymore. I think it's still good. I just think that it needs a little bit more, and this deck right here really impressed me. So definitely going to be getting more content out. I plan to get some more games in. When will I have another when will I be in another tournament? I have no idea. Definitely will be playing Rulers again, hoping to get another top. In terms of BCS Championship, I'm thinking November 2nd, I believe, is that Saturday, the first weekend of November for BCS Championship. Don't like lock it in, but that would be like the loose date. And in terms of donations, I'll be opening up a donation for anybody who wants to contribute. I'm definitely going to be putting some of my own money into it. I'm not sure how much yet, but I think that first place is going to be the one who gets all the prize, just to make it like, worthwhile. But I will talk it over with some of my friends here and help, those who help with the tournaments. Will decide on it entirely. Also, I'm going to open up channel membership, and for the next month, all the membership that people who subscribe, we will put towards the funds for the tournament. So I'm going to be doing a few things with the channel over the next week or two, and if you haven't already, please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you all on the next one.